Hey everyone, it's Andre Luck here to share my video for this week where I'm going to talk about the path from individual contributor to potentially becoming a vice president. So I think a lot of times if you're an individual contributor on like a sales team, that means you're just the one that's just selling. You're not managing necessarily. You don't have a staff underneath you. You're solely responsible for yourself, meaning individual contributor. And I think the challenge, specifically in sports, is there isn't really a clear path. You need an innovative organization, a forward thinking leader to kind of create these opportunities for that individual contributor to move up throughout the ranks and eventually get to a higher level title within the team or within the organization. Because what I've seen a lot of times is that person, they're a really high level seller. They sell a ton of revenue, a ton of tickets, specifically in sports, but for themselves, they don't necessarily want to manage. They don't want to become an inside sales manager. They don't want to be a director over a particular line of business yet, maybe in the future. So when it gets to that point where they've been selling and they're looking for a challenge, they have to get out of sports and they go to like tech sales or wealth management or insurance sales or something where they can make a lot more money and probably work less hours. But there's tons of opportunities for that person if we can find a way to keep them within sports. We just have to be innovative about how we do it. For myself, I knew I wanted to get into management. I knew I wanted to be a teacher, a coach, and eventually become like an inside sales manager, director. And ultimately, that was the path that a lot of us took to get to vice president. But I think in the future, that individual contributor is going to have an opportunity to move up, take on more strategy projects while they're also selling and still gain that experience so that they can become a director, senior director, even a vice president one day. And they're still getting the skills necessary to get them to that point. If that's the path that they want to go, some they may not want that. They just want to sell, make a ton of money. I'll also talk about how you sustain in a role like that. So to kind of set the stage here. So this is that person who is typically your top seller, whether that's revenue, best sales skills, however you quantify that, there's probably one or two that immediately come to mind on your sales team. And what the challenge is going to be in the future, if you want to elevate this person, but they don't want to manage, is like, how do you make the justification for that? If your executive team or your CFO is like, all right, why are we going to give this person a title, pay them more? What value are they bringing to the organization? I'm going to hit on some ways that not only can you bring value by selling, but also doing additional responsibilities that bring value and justify if you need to make the business case to your boss or to your executive team as to why you, if you're that person, or if you have someone on your staff that you want to advocate for to get to this higher level role, how they can do that and what they can start doing now to prepare for that. So in the future, I do see sales teams kind of shrinking down a little bit. I do think, some of those lower end who just kind of take what comes, really milks off what comes inbound and not really incrementally going out and finding and creating new business for the organization. I don't see that person sustaining a long career within sports. I think it's going to be more of these higher level individual contributors, lots of tenure, big books of business, but bring a ton of value because of the contacts that they have and the network that they've built over the years to drive revenue. Because that person is going to bring in a lot more than if you're turning your sales team over and bringing in someone new who's got to get up to speed, who's got to understand the products, build a network. If you can keep these people here, one, you're keeping a lot of revenue internally. So the challenge is going to be, how do you keep that person engaged and feeling like they're continuing to grow? So if you are that person, you obviously see the value yourself and you think it's valid and justified, but here's how you can bring additional value and actually do some tangible things that are going to be able to be represented or presented to your leadership team as to why, hey, I know I'm a senior account executive, but I should get promoted to a manager, director, or eventually even a vice president, although I'm not directly overseeing people. The first tip for this person is going to be the ability to sell B2B. There's not a lot of B2C proactive sales roles still out there. A lot of that's more self-serve, people transacting online, a lot of marketing motions and efforts. So if you're going to be that individual contributor, not only should you be able to sell B2C, so maybe you have a ton of groups, maybe, groups for churches, schools, you built that book of business, but you also need to start to branch out and start getting corporate accounts on board because those are incremental opportunities that aren't necessarily always coming in. You have to go out and find and go out and create those opportunities. So being able to be well-versed, well-rounded is going to set yourself up well to generate a lot of revenue, but also get brand recognition within the organization. They're going to be like, this person's well-rounded. They sell all types of products. They're not just, one trick pony and they can only sell this type of group or this type of segment. Eventually, they're going to need that person to sell outside of their churches, their schools, their transactional groups, things like that. Because, there's the argument that could be made if you took those groups for the person that's been there, 10, 15 years and built up this huge book of business. If you took all those groups and those accounts away and distribute them across, evenly to more salespeople, could you actually get more out of it? Because they could touch them, more frequently how you need them to. They can more penetrate those accounts and look to grow and expand those versus someone who, may be in over their head over trying to keep up with everyone in service and renew them and everything that comes with that. So really, you want to be able to make sure that you're not just holding a big book of business and that's why your revenue's at the top of the board, but you're well versed, you're going out and bringing in new business. When you look at your distribution of accounts, it's not too heavily skewed on the renewal side or too heavily skewed on the inbound side. You're also bringing in incremental new business revenue. On the renewal side, you're able to expand and grow those accounts. So when you look at being well-rounded and not just selling what's coming to you, but also creating opportunities, that's the first place to put yourself and separate yourself as that individual contributor who's making more impact versus most people who are just kind of taking what comes and as a team plays well or as there's demand for your product they're selling, but you can go out and create your own opportunities on top of that. You also want to start to become a strategic planner where you're actively involved in this planning process or not. You need to think about the business more holistically. A lot of times when you're starting out in your career, you're looking just at, how do I drive as much ticket revenue for myself? But starting to think outside of it, like how do we go to market as a department? How do we go to market as an organization? And what are our opportunities to grow our revenue? What are different campaigns that we should be running and proactively bringing that to your leadership team? Eventually they'll want you in those meetings and that'll be beneficial for you long term because that's a big part of that next level as you get into leadership is the strategic planning, understanding the analytics behind it, understanding the campaigns that are working, that are not, where you should invest your resources. So the more you can get that acumen when you're selling and be involved in that process, it's going to help you as you ascend and move up throughout your career. So I would proactively ask if you could be involved in that, especially if you've proven that you can sell at a high level and you can take on this additional responsibility. But if not, starting to think yourself, what are our opportunities to get better? What are people saying that they like? What are the objections that we're hearing? Um, if we, tweak this in our process, I think, we could see more success in bringing that to the table. That's all part of that strategic thought process that you need to have at the next level that you can develop now as an individual contributor, whether you have the title or not, but getting involved in those conversations and starting to understand, how do we go about building the products and why do we set the prices the way that we do and everything like that. So you know that all that goes into it, not just how to sell it. A big opportunity in the future is going to be, the tools, the tech stack, AI, all that you implement to make your team more efficient and more effective. So a lot of times that more tenured seller, that's, the individual contributor that we're talking about here, they're probably stuck in their ways. They've probably work off an Excel spreadsheet and they got their old school system that they've used. But the more you can adopt new technology and maximize your CRM, look for new tools that are out there in market that whether it's in sports or out of sports people are using and you hear about those things and you proactively, whether you research them and bring them to the table or test them out yourself, thinking about how as a whole you can work more efficiently and being a power user of these tools and not fighting, oh, there's change, there's something different, but being a power user of the tools that you have, but then also, being forward thinking when it comes to technology and how that can help you, your sales team, your leadership team work more efficiently and proactively bringing those to the table. So I think that's a big opportunity as well, is staying up on it. And then when we have these tools, like really diving into it, a lot of them have tutorials or kind of learning centers that you can fully maximize. So if your staff or your organization is going to invest these dollars to give you a tool like a LinkedIn Sales Navigator or some B2B database platform like a Zoom Info or a Sales Intel or Apollo or one that are out there, go into the training centers. Yes, you may know at the surface level, here's how I do the basic things, but what are second, third level advanced tips that can help you so you can fully maximize. I heard that on a podcast here recently. The best sellers, they dive into these tools and really look to use it for their advantage, not just at the surface level of what, they might have bought it for, but there's deeper opportunities to fully maximize that. The last thing I'll say, or last couple things I'll say here, um, when you're that top seller within the staff, it's kind of expected, and these people also enjoy it, but you're helping mentor and develop the junior staff, those new people that are coming in, whether it's brand new, their first sales job, or, their first few years, and maybe they're making a transition from out of sports to in sports. Like, this is someone that you can mentor and develop by one, going on shadowing their calls and going on their meetings or even running these meetings for them, or two, bringing them into the fold with you as you're going on meetings, as you're going on appointments, bringing them and letting them shadow you and see what it looks like for someone who's been doing it well for a really long time. That just speeds up the learning curve for them, takes a lot of weight off of your leadership team from having to always do the training, or even yourself leading trainings and developing them and creating them and going to your managers and directors and saying, hey, I'd love to lead a training on this, overcoming objections, or, making a decision call, or sending proposals, whatever it may be that you think, based on, being on the floor and hearing what people are saying, or having conversations, knowing what people are struggling with, proactively bringing those trainings to the table and asking if you can lead it, or, taking someone to lunch or grabbing coffee with someone, like, hey, I heard you say these things on the phone. Here are some tips, or here's some things that are working for me. Here's how I go through this process. But really being a mentor from a sales perspective, but also just as a professional for that junior staff. But like I said, this person eventually wants to get to, a higher level position where maybe you're overseeing people, or maybe you're overseeing a unit of the business. But either way, if someone's going to send you to a manager, director, VP level, you have to be a strong leader. You have to be able to mentor younger people, newer people, less experienced people within the staff. And the last thing I'd say for this person, we'll say that they're just in ticket sales. They focus solely on, season tickets, group tickets, retention, whatever it may be, thinking more like an organizational seller. So what I mean by that is not just tickets and hospitality, but thinking how you can grow revenue for the sponsorship side of the business. How can you help bring people that maybe want to fundraise and do things through the foundation? Organizations that may want to co-collaborate and do more marketing initiatives that maybe don't get attributed to your revenue amount and you get paid commission on, but can be more promotional type initiatives that grow your brand or gain new fans. Because at the end of the day, at the C level, the president, the CEO, they want more customers, they want more revenue, they want more tickets sold, and some of that you can impact, but there's other initiatives that executives are doing that maybe don't directly lead to revenue, but help build the brand or support the sales team. So those are projects that you can start to take on and find ways within your network or within your account base to bring people to the mix that may want to participate in some of those things. So just thinking more holistically outside of your, not even just tickets, but thinking outside of your individual department and starting to think big picture across the organization. So to recap here, if you're that person who, hey, I don't want to necessarily manage, be an inside sales manager, or a group sales manager, whatever it is, I just want to sell because I enjoy it and I like the money that comes with it and the autonomy I get by being a seller. But I do have aspirations to eventually get to a higher level, like a director or vice president level. To recap here, a couple things you could start doing now: making sure you're a well-rounded seller, making sure you're bringing incremental dollars to the table, proficient in new technology and efficient tools that are going to help you all as a department and an organization just work better. Bringing insights to your leadership team, so thinking with that strategic planning and that strategic vision, being a mentor to the newer sellers and the junior staff that are coming to the team, then thinking organizationally, holistically about how are ways that we can grow revenue, how are ways that I can help the organization achieve all of their goals, not just their tickets and revenue goals. And I think the inspiration behind this, and why I thought this was relevant, is, I've had multiple conversations over the past couple of weeks with managers, directors, leaders who have more senior level staff. And the challenge is, they're pushing them to think outside the box. They're pushing them to try and think and go get proactive new business. But a lot of them have been there 10, 15 plus years. They're stuck in their ways. They've built up a comfortable book of business. It's a little uncomfortable to challenge them because they still are at the top of the board, but that they could be doing more. So I'd say for those leaders, have that conversation and be confident to go out and challenge that staff, because that isn't sustainable for a person to just sit there and milk off their years of work. They eventually need to grow and build up that, because there is the argument, like I said earlier, that could be made that if you took all those accounts and spread them across more people, you could be making more money. So you could be leaving money on the table by just having one person just hold on to all this, but not go out and find new opportunities and only sell what's coming in from their book of business they've inherited over the years, and not going out and finding new opportunities. So would love to hear your thoughts on this. Appreciate you all tuning in. I'll be back here next week for another video. But again, thanks for checking this out. Have a good one.